Welcome to Unafraid Show. Thank you guys for joining me. It's your boy George Reister in the building. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, wherever. Make sure to visit unafraidshow.com for all your sports needs. Actually, not even just all your sports needs, but where sports meets life, meets people, meets politics, everything. Nothing is off limits. Nothing is off the table. Thank you guys for joining me. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your energy. We got a bunch of great things up today. The tennis umpires trying to boycott Serena. We got Alston versus the NCAA, which is a case that's going on in California right now that's going to determine whether amateurism stays how it is with the scholarships. Because right now, scholarships are only worth the cost of attendance, as opposed to if the plaintiffs win, the NCAA would have violated antitrust laws, which would change college sports all over the place. Mark Wahlberg's schedule, his outrageous ass schedule, who nobody believes, talking about he wakes up at 2:30 in the morning, goes sleep at 7:30. Stop, man. And lastly, Hurricane Florence. Prisoners are staying in their terrible living conditions. Makes no sense to me, but I want to know what you guys think about it as well. But we are going to start with with Serena Williams. So everybody, unless you've been living under a rock, you saw what happened to her against Osaka in the U.S. Open final. Her and Carlos Ramos, who's the chair umpire, they get into a tiff. She calls him a thief. He takes a point. She breaks a racket. All this kind of stuff. And Serena called it sexist, saying that this is a big sexist thing and men do way worse. I want to go into that because what I think that this is about, as a man who has pride, who has ego, and I consider myself a man's man. Here's what I thought about it. I think that a lot of Carlos Ramos's reaction to the situation, because he didn't give her warnings, all of this stuff, in terms of after she called him a thief and all that. Serena did not display a good example of how to move on, how to just press forward when things are tough and things are rough. You know, to turn the page. She wasn't a shining example of that. However, this is typical behavior in tennis. Typical behavior. And I think the problem came in, which I was saying, I'm a man, have ego, thoughts, feelings, all these things. And here is what happened, I believe, is that Carlos Ramos, who has had Novak Djokovic call him crap, have other guys cuss him out, say bad things to him. Here is the problem. He didn't like it because he was on national television. Everybody in the world is watching who enjoys tennis, who likes Serena Williams, is watching, and he's getting berated by a woman. I think that affected him. I do, because there's a difference in if somebody gets upset with you, if you get in an argument with somebody or somebody comes down, like if a coach talks to a player in private, that's different. But if the coach goes off on a player in front of the team, that evokes different emotions and feelings, which is going to change how the reaction to the situation happens. And that's what I think that happened in this case. I don't think that necessarily Carlos Ramos is some like sexist pig human being. However, I do think that he let a lot of his man ego get in the way of doing what was right. Because this was a U.S. Open final. This is a big deal. He is in control of what happens in this match. And as a referee or an umpire, the last thing that a referee or umpire needs to do is be involved in the match. Is be involved in the outcome of the match. And you have so many people, like that cartoon that came out about Serena. People said it was racist. No, all this is about is that Carlos Ramos, a man, had a problem with the woman. talking to him like that. But I get it. I understand that. But does that make it fair? Does it make it right? No. It doesn't make it fair. It doesn't make it right. But you have to understand that this was a man having an emotional reaction to something that happened to him, even though he should not have reacted that way. But now they're talking about they want to boycott. The umpires are talking about they want to boycott Serena's matches. What? This is where my problem with the whole situation comes in, aside from Carlos Ramos injecting himself into being a big factor in what happened in the match. Here is my problem. The hypocrisy in that, because I got a list. Novak Djokovic got into an argument with Ramos at the French Open, called him crap. He got multiple warnings, was docked no points or games, but they didn't want to boycott him. He didn't want to boycott him. I'm just talking specifically about Ramos, the same chair umpire. Rafael Nadal, 2017 French Open. These aren't old incidents. Got 2 verbal warnings, but did not have a point or a game docked after he threatened Ramos. Threatened him. On another occasion, Novak Djokovic screamed at Ramos, threw his racket, and pretended to throw a ball at him. But he didn't want to boycott then. He didn't want to boycott Novak Djokovic's matches. So it goes back to the idea of like what we expect out of our women, what we expect out of our men, and what is acceptable behavior. Because do you teach your son, do you teach your daughter different ways of behaving? Like, is it okay for your son to get upset and punch somebody in the face, but it's not okay for your daughter to do it? I mean, that's really what it boils down and breaks down to. Because in the heat and the passion of sports, like, what's okay? Is it good for the same thing a woman to do, same thing a man can do, all of that? Because I think that that it's sports, and you have to have a level playing field because it's a meritocracy. And at the point in time where you have the umpire being involved in the match, this is a problem. He's got to find a way to diffuse the situation and especially not turn it into what this is. And then one of the main points that I saw in opposition to Serena was that yes, she did throw a little bit of a temper tantrum. Totally agree. But it wasn't as bad as anything that Bagnatis has done, Kyrgios, Djokovic, Andy Murray, James Blake. All these guys have admitted, Andy Roddick, not as bad as things that they've done. So here's the thing that I've heard. Social justice warrior. Oh, she's using a woman card. She's a mom and all this. Well, people usually play to the choir a little bit. But she's not wrong. She's not wrong in the sense of that there is a double standard. But she is wrong in the fact of her reaction. She let her reaction distract her, and the things that were happening around her distract her from her match. Whole different story. So both of those things can coexist at the same time and be true. Serena could have been wrong for what she did and how she handled it, but then still had the right and reasonability to be upset about what happened to her. But these boycotts, they're going to boycott our matches? Tennis needs to consider forming a union if this happens. I know everybody doesn't love unions, but in sports, these things change things. They are very effective. And you have to look at the history of Serena, the history of Billie Jean King, other players who have not only fought for equal pay at these majors because they get just as good or better ratings than the men sometimes. Because Serena and Osaka's match outrated the men. So should they ask for more pay than the men? Oh, the men do more work. That doesn't, and nowhere else on earth does more work translate into higher pay. Well, a higher pay rate. Nowhere. Garbage men work harder than actors. Who makes more money? Football players don't work as hard or sacrifice as much as, a teacher. But who makes more money? It's about revenue generation. It's not about anything besides that, the amount of work. That's lame. But I totally support Serena in this situation because, and you can call me a social justice warrior if you want to. You can call me whatever it is that you want to call me. The truth of the matter is that Serena Williams has been wronged in this situation. She has, and so have so many other women who have been really forced to not, to take a back seat, to be quiet and all of these things. So I support that. If I'm a social justice warrior for that, then I'll be a social justice warrior, because the truth of the matter is that men do far worse and don't get penalized. And that's just the truth. And it's not okay. And I wouldn't teach my daughter that she needs to be quiet and sit idly by just because, you're supposed to act like a lady. No, acting like a lady on the court is balling out and being tough and playing hard. I expect you to show emotion for you to get upset sometimes. It's the truth, man. Okay, so Kurt Reynolds just pointed out, he said during the 2018 tournaments, 85 fines for code violations were issued to men. All these things, they got verbal abuse warnings, all of these things, but the reaction, nobody cares about the fine. It's not about the fine that Serena received of $17,000. Nobody cares. It's the fact that the umpire inserted himself into the match and affected the outcome of the match. When men do far worse, yes, they should be fined or penalized, but you should not be affecting the match. Therein lies the problem. The next thing that we got up is Alston versus the NCAA. If you don't know what this is, I'll explain it to you. The amateurism, as the NCAA has it, is on trial for violating antitrust law. So the NCAA, if anybody understands how scholarships work, if you receive a full ride scholarship, it's based upon the cost of attendance. So you get your tuition paid for, books, and then there's a stipend for living expenses based upon the cost of tuition that you can find on the school's website and all these things. So, but the lawsuit contends that it is a violation of antitrust lawsuits antitrust law, because you should be able to receive value above the cost of attendance in terms of your scholarship, that you should be able to receive that. And the NCAA is arguing that this will affect amateurism, that it will change how people feel about college sports. And I want to know, send your comments in now or email them in to I'mMad@unafraidshow.com. Do you believe that amateurism and your love for college sports would be affected by players getting paid? Because there's so many people that feel like that believe that these players are going to school for free. But they're not going to school for free. How on earth would they be going to school for free? They're working over 40 hours a week for it. And then they're not allowed to trade on their name. Which, and interesting about this case, the same judge who presided over the Ed O'Bannon versus the NCAA case, which ruled, it's Judge, what's her name? Judge Claudia Wilkin. She ruled that the NCAA could no longer own players' images and likeness in perpetuity and use them for commercial purposes without paying the players, which makes sense. So if I graduate or expire my eligibility, why should you still be able to make money off my name, my likeness, my image without paying me for it? Like, there's no other place on earth that you can do that. Oh, sorry, no other place in the United States where you can do that. where you can trade on somebody else's name. That sounds what I call it. Some people call it slave labor. I don't think it's slave labor. I think it's indentured servitude. Like you're working off a debt almost. And then you get a prize at the end. So the coaches get paid. The administrators make millions. All these people. But then the players get a valuable education. Yes, your education is valuable, but why should you have to miss out on part of your earning potential? Why should you have to miss out on that? I'll give you a prime example. Some people from the University of Houston were upset with me because I tweeted out about Ed Oliver, their 5-star defensive tackle who went to Houston, shunned the Power 5 schools, and talked about how the school was passing out Ed Oliver sitting on a goat bobbleheads to members of the media and to Heisman voters. And I said that the school is profiting off of Ed Oliver, using his likeness and image, but then if he were to sell them or give them away, it would be a problem. He would then be suspended. And they got all upset with me thinking I was attacking Houston, but in reality, it's the system that's broken. Because the school benefits from having a Heisman Trophy candidate, from it'll take a recruiting bump, donations may go up, all of these things that support the Houston athletic program, all these things will increase. But Ed Oliver, the argument for Ed Oliver is, oh, he'll get it in the end. He'll get it in the end when he gets to go to the NFL. Well, all players don't go to the NFL. And you have to remember that sometimes players' highest earning potential is while they are in college. Because everybody doesn't make it to the league. So sometimes their highest earning potential. Let me explain that to you. Because at some point in time in life, you and I are going to make the most amount of money in a short period of time. Sometimes it's in your teens. You're an actor, you're an athlete, something like that. You play tennis or whatever. Could be in your teens. Sometimes it's in your 20s. Sometimes it's in your 30s. Sometimes in your 40s, 50s, 60s. You don't know when your highest earning potential is going to be. So the fact that part of a college athlete's life, while he is on a big stage, known around campus, cannot trade on his name and do things to further secure his future while he's in school or she's in school, makes zero sense to me. Because the NCAA, they shut down the kicker from Central Florida or South Florida who had the YouTube page. The dude is making YouTube videos and you're bothering him? Really? Like, let's think about that. And that's where amateurism continues and should be on trial. Because it is going to totally change how college sports works if the players win the lawsuit against the NCAA about its scholarship rules. Because if the players win, here's what's going to happen. The NCAA, each individual conference is going to then be able to set its own rules about scholarships. So you're going to have, obviously, the Big Five, Pac-12, Big 10, Big 12, ACC, and SEC have the most money. So they're going to be able to offer players the most money. Them, Notre Dame, maybe BYU, the independent schools as well. So you're going to have a lot of schools be able to essentially, up the ante. So if Nick Saban is worth $11 million a year, how much is Tua Tagovailoa, his quarterback, worth, who saved the day and won a national championship for him? Think about that. How much above his scholarship value is he really worth? And this could turn into a bidding war by the conferences to try to get players. Turn into a bidding war by the conferences. Because if the Pac-12 is offering $50,000 a year, is $10,000 or $12,000 a year above your cost of attendance, but then the SEC is offering $20,000, that could change things. Now I do think that there could, yes, be some regulation on that, but this is a free market. I mean, this is capitalism at its finest. It's just the truth. Like, you can't be upset that you have people who are better at their job, or that have more resources or anything like that. You can't want to penalize them. That's just the truth. Next thing we got up today is Mark Wahlberg. Actually, we'll get to Mark Wahlberg next. But I want to talk about Hurricane Florence, because there's so many people that are going to be affected by Hurricane Florence in the next few days, starting today, and it's going to continue. Football games, baseball games, all these sports are being canceled, rescheduled, moved. Start times changed. Like Georgia just changed theirs against, I think, Middle Tennessee State or something, from a 7 o'clock game to a noon game, like a whole bunch of other changes. But one of the things that has been in the news that hasn't gotten a lot of attention, I didn't think, is that with Hurricane Florence, when hurricanes come in town, they announce themselves. You know that they are coming. And in this case, there are mandatory evacuations. And there are sometimes people who can't leave. Sometimes people in hospitals aren't able to leave. People have to stay and support them. But there's one group that doesn't have a choice, and those are prisoners. And I want to know what you guys think about the prisoners that are being left in McDougal Correctional Facility and other facilities in South Carolina during the hurricane. Because I know that the argument against prisoners is, well, they're prisoners, they're in jail, they don't deserve anything, all this. But isn't the point of jail to, obviously, for you to punish you for your crimes, but it's also to rehab people who are then going to be re-released into the community? Because this prison is a medium security prison. So a lot of these guys are going to be getting out at some point in time. So, and if you treat them like animals, actually lower than animals, I mean, how do you think that they're going to be reintegrated into the community? I mean, like, this is a human issue, not just a justice system issue. Because it's 650 men at this one facility that are not being moved. And it doesn't make sense to me. He said, the warden said, we're not going to gamble with the lives of the people of South Carolina, not a one. So, but the other prisons that are moving people, they are moving people to other facilities that are further away. They're not releasing them out into the public and say, oh, I hope they come back. No, they are actually moving them to other facilities and then transporting them back at some point in time. And I don't understand why this makes sense. Because if you look back, a history of the hurricanes, one of the biggest hurricanes that we've ever seen in the United States was Hurricane Katrina, which affected New Orleans and Louisiana. A lot of those prisoners were left there. 500 prisoners died. They were left unattended, without food, locked up in their cells, with water chest high at times. I mean, what kind of conditions are those for people, even if they are prisoners? I mean, if anybody can make sense out of that, let me know. Same thing happened with Hurricane Harvey in Houston. J.J. Watt raised all this money. Everybody's, doing all this great stuff for Houston, as they should. But what do we do about these people who are incarcerated? Like, we do need to have some sort of contingency plan for them. Because just to leave people to die in a cell while they just are drowned and cannot get out, that seems very inhumane to me, buddy. That seems like we are, for doing that, as bad as what those people did to get in jail. That's just the way I look at it. I mean, there has to be some sort of humanity and compassion for people out in the world. There just has to be. The last thing that we got up is Marky Mark. Marky Mark's schedule. Do y'all see this? Y'all see this schedule? This dude posted it on Instagram, talking about he wakes up at 2:30 in the morning and goes to sleep at 7:30. Man, if you don't GTFOH Mark Wahlberg, get out of here, bro. So let's just go down this list for just a second. Get to 6 o'clock. So he's already had breakfast, post-workout meal, goes to go get in the shower. From 6 to 7:30, he showers. I mean, everything else is on like 15, 30-minute schedules, but it gets an hour and a half for a shower. What the hell are you doing in the shower, homeboy? I always have questions when I see things like this. Then next thing, 7:30 to 8, golf. The hell are you golfing for? I mean, you're only golfing for 30 minutes? You're only golfing? I mean, what kind of sense does that make? Unless you're having your snack on the golf course, your 8 o'clock snack at the golf course. Then he goes to cryo, snack, family time at 11 a.m. to meetings, work calls, and then goes on to lunch, meeting, work calls, pick the kids up at school, snack, workout at 4, shower at 5, dinner time at 5:30. This dude spent, I mean, just the absolute amount of family time that is spent versus all these other things are absolutely outrageous. And then he's in bed at 7:30. Like, this is not true. I see him at basketball games. I see him at baseball games. This schedule does not look believable. I know it sounds cute and it sounds fun. I'm not buying it, Mark Wahlberg. Any of you guys buying it, let me know at I'mMad@unafraidshow.com. Oh, you guys, thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. Don't forget to visit theunafraidshow.com. There's an entire article about the Alston versus the NCAA case. So many details in there. I appreciate it. You guys make sure you share The Unafraid Show with a friend. If you missed it, download the podcast. It'll be up in just shortly. Appreciate it. Catch you guys tomorrow.